As the wounded lioness limped toward the forgotten hut, her two cubs trailing quietly behind her, no one, not even the land itself, realized that the silence wasn't peace. It was a cry, a warning hidden in stillness. Up on a lonely dirt hill, overlooking the old Kafoi River in western Zambia, the observation hut still stood weather-beaten, abandoned, ivy crawling up its walls like nature slowly reclaiming what man had left behind. Sunlight poured through the broken roof, warming dust that hadn't been disturbed in years. And into that fragile silence came a sound, not footsteps, not growls, just breath, heavy, dragging, desperate breath. She was barely standing. Her shoulders sagged, her left foreleg, torn and bloodied, barely held her up. Dried mud clung to her sides like old bruises, and behind her, two cubs walked slowly, too frightened to be curious, too young to understand. One mimicked her limp, the other hesitated with every step. When she reached the hut, her legs gave way. She collapsed at the threshold, eyes never leaving the horizon. She wasn't unconscious, but she was fading. Her chest rose in short, shallow bursts, her tail barely twitched. And still, her focus remained. She felt it, something moving in the bushes, a shape, coiling through the earth. The danger hadn't passed, and then it appeared silent and ancient. A massive python, winding its way through the underbrush like a ripple of death. It was hunting, slow and certain, drawn to the scent of blood and the weakness it always found irresistible. The cubs didn't see it. One lay in the shadows beside the hut. The other stared at his mother's still face, waiting for her to blink. But the python was already closing in. Not far from there, in the ruins of a village hut, a woman stepped out barefoot onto the warm earth. Her name was Io. She had once been known as a healer, though most now called her simply the woman who knows. She didn't walk with a purpose, only instinct, a rhythm deep in her chest, like the beat of something ancient and unspoken. When that rhythm shifted, she moved this morning. It pulled her. The air was heavy, still too still, and in that quiet, she felt it, that eerie kind of silence that presses against your ribs and tells you something isn't right. She followed it, and when she reached the clearing, the sight stopped her cold. Two lion cubs, alone beside a lioness who was barely breathing. Io's breath caught in her throat. The lioness didn't move, but her eyes met Io's across the space between them, soft and wild, filled with something that wasn't fear, but sorrow. Two creatures who'd never met, but in that moment, they understood each other. Both had lost, both had fought, and both knew something was coming. The cubs would not die today. No one knew how the lioness had made it this far, but the trail behind her told the story. Drag marks, scattered paw prints, a thin line of blood that began deep in the forest and stretched all the way here. This wound, it wasn't from a fight with prey, it was a strangulation. It had started 2 days earlier. She'd been teaching her cubs how to stalk gazelles along the shaded slope of the forest. The heat pressed down like a weight. The air was thick, and not even the birds dared to sing. And that's when it struck. The python moved, like a shadow, silent, invisible, until it was too late. 1 second, she was crouched low in the grass. The next, a cold, crushing force wrapped around her chest. There was no roar, no sound at all. The snake coiled fast, once around her midsection, again around her hind legs, and then her front paw. The pressure was immense. Her breath vanished, her body folded. She fought back, sank her teeth into the serpent's flesh. But the python was too strong. It began to squeeze, inch by inch. Her cubs watched from a few feet away, too small to help, too scared to run, and that's when something changed in her eyes. She wasn't fighting to survive anymore. She was fighting for them. Her claws dug into the dirt, her legs trembled, her heart thundered, and then she saw it, a slope, a hole in the earth. With a last burst of strength, she dragged the snake toward it. The python lost its balance. That moment of weakness was all she needed. She turned, clamped her jaws around its neck, and bit down with everything she had left. No blood came, only a sharp hiss, like air leaving something dead inside. The python uncoiled, and fled. But the python hadn't just vanished days ago. It had slithered back into the bush, wounded but not finished. And now, it had returned. This time, it was smarter, slower, deadlier. The lioness lay where she'd fallen, her body weaker than ever. Her front leg was still bleeding. Her lungs struggled under the weight of internal injuries. She had survived that first attack. But barely. If she hadn't escaped, her cubs would have died. And now, the threat was back to finish what it started. The snake moved like smoke, silent and invisible, curling through the undergrowth toward the hut. The cubs rested on their mother's chest, unaware of the creeping death just inches away. She sensed it first. The lioness lifted her head, eyes searching, but she couldn't rise. Her injured leg buckled beneath her. That's when Io appeared. The woman had followed her instinct again, feet pressing into the dry grass, eyes fixed on the bushes, and she saw it. The python it was almost there. Its body barely rustled the grass. As it slithered closer, slowly, confidently, then, it struck in one swift move. Its thick body coiled around the lioness's hind leg. The cubs stumbled back, confused. Their mother let out a roar, but it was weak, broken, more plea than power.io's heart raced. She had no weapon, only a walking stick and a few old glass bottles in her pouch. But there was no time to think, only to act. Her eyes darted across the ground. Then she saw it, a piece of old iron, rusted and forgotten, half buried by the hut's corner, once part of a fence, now a weapon. She grabbed it, and she ran. Io didn't think about the risks, or her age, or the weight of fear in her bones. She just ran. All she could see was the twisting black coil wrapped around the lioness's body, tightening. The second loop was already around her waist. The cubs were frozen, trembling. Their mother's throat fluttered with every fading breath. Io didn't stop. She remembered her grandfather, the way he'd taught her to deal with snakes. If you don't hit the head, he used to say, you might as well not hit at all. She raised the iron bar and struck. The first blow landed with a dull thud. No reaction. The python kept tightening. Io hit again, harder this time. A sickening crack echoed through the clearing. The python turned its head toward her. And in that split second, as their eyes locked, time stopped. She didn't see an animal. She saw nature's rage, nature's raw, merciless force. But she didn't flinch, because at that moment, Io wasn't just a woman. She was a protector, a warrior, a mother in her own right. The snake lunged, wrapped its body around her waist. She stumbled, but didn't fall, didn't scream, didn't stop. She raised the iron again and brought it down, once, twice, until the python loosened its grip. The lioness stirred, the coil slipped, the snake hissed and slithered back into the bush, defeated. Its long body moved slower now, then vanished. But Io collapsed. Her chest rose slowly. Her fingers twitched, but her eyes, they wouldn't stay open. The lioness crawled toward her. They looked at one another, woman and beast. No words, no sound, but everything was said. Years of pain, moments of sacrifice, the courage of strangers. All locked into one final look. The lioness pressed her nose into Io's hand. Io's fingers curled, just barely. Then her eyes fell closed. For good, the cubs ran to their mother. She embraced them with her body, but her gaze stayed on Io. One life ended that day, but 3 were saved. When the villagers arrived hours later, they found a scene no one could explain. The lioness stood guard beside the woman's body. She wouldn't let anyone near her cubs, not until morning. When the sun rose, again, the lion and her cubs were gone, vanished without a sound. But in the dirt, paw prints remained, and near them, the iron rod. The villagers took it back. They placed it in the center of the square, standing tall on a bed of stones. And, beneath it, they carved one simple line: one life was quietly given, so others could live. And now, we ask you, if it were you, would you give your life to save the young of a creature you had never known? If this story moved you, leave a like. Subscribe for more true stories from the wild, because somewhere out there, another silent pact is being made.